a time there was truth in journalism, where brave men and women gave voice to the voiceless. But then the corporations bought the journalist, poisoning the news that we are fed. With those tainted sources, all we ever ate was a steady diet of status quo. This hijacked narrative hid the truth of mass suffering, injustice, and corruption throughout our land. Status quo, status quo, status quo, status quo. To expose this shift to oligarchy came a band of honest journalists. They left the studio and hit the streets to give the microphone back to the people. From sea to sea, the people were empowered to share their truth. Their voices no longer stifled, reclaimed their power. Join the media revolution now.
Hey there, Jordan Sheridan live, Status Coup in the house, right here in the United Corporations of America. I hope you're doing well. Jen, I think that we are going to have to raise more money via GoFundMe, because obviously, these text alerts are making a difference. It's incredible, folks. I launched the countdown. GoFundMe, by the way. Jen will put the link in there. Do it for Jen. She's having migraines today. She's not feeling well, but she's working anyway. So do it for Jen. We post, the countdown starts. It's stuck at like 20 viewers. Then it goes up to 30. There's like 5 minutes left. We're at like 50 viewers. We have 78,000 subscribers. So I say to Jen, YouTube is just screwing us. Nobody knows we're live. We send out the text, which is expensive. It's not cheap for us to be texting everybody and to grow that text list. And all of a sudden, the audience shoots up. And we get in the super chat, oh, I'm only here because of the text. Because YouTube, shall I say, YouTube, isn't showing you in your feeds when we're live. It's incredible. So we're just going to have to do more texts, which is costing us an arm and a leg. But got to do what we got to do. So right there in the super chat, support us, because it costs us a lot of money, unfortunately, to inform you when we're live. Jen could give you the details, but it's costing so much to keep sending out these texts. But we're going to have to start doing it more regularly. So a little update. We are now, I'm not great at math, but I believe that would be $1,770 away. $1,770 away from $100,000 raised. Thank you so much, Gina, for the $21. Thank you, Steph, for the $5. Thank you. Gina, 21, Steph, 5 from today. Of course, we totally get it. Times are rough. If you can't donate, you can't donate. If you can, we appreciate it, because we're suffering just like the rest of you. Please, folks, make sure you smash that like button. It's the thumbs up button right under the live stream. We got a great show for you today. Also, speaking of text, join our text list. Text 370-370. That's 370-370, and type in COUP. That will get you on our text list so that we could alert you and do the job that YouTube won't when we are live. So text 370-370 COUP. I don't think it costs you anything to do that, and it makes a huge, huge difference, because we're already seeing our live audience jump when we send out the text. We are live on Periscope right now, so that's at Status Coup. You could follow us. We're live on Twitch, twitch.tv/Status Coup. Join our email list at statuscoup.com. So thank you. I live in Germany and always see your feeds. That's very interesting. Maybe Germany is less suppressed. than the United Corporations of America. So let's get right into it. Jen did a great video a little bit, which you probably didn't even see because YouTube's hiding our on-demand videos as well. So I'm going to start with the Joe Biden interview and what I think is, it's just absurd that these two questions were not asked. To me, it's the biggest. It's the biggest part of this whole thing. So I want to get to that. And of course, it's Mayday, Amazon, Walmart workers, Target workers, FedEx workers, Instacart workers, a whole lot of workers are striking today. I hope it's the sign of more permanent strikes, that it's not just a day. There's also rent strike initiatives going on today, so we're going to get to all that. I have a great interview for you with a worker from Total Wine who is blowing the whistle. Imagine this. There is a Democratic congressman right now that is also the CEO of Total Wine. And Total Wine, which is raking in profits right now because they have more customers, because a lot of people are home and need some liquid assistance. Total Wine is raking in profits, yet stripped away their workers' hazard pay without telling them. So we have an interview with that worker who, frankly, is probably going to get fired for doing the interview and knows that, but is being courageous anyway. Also have a worker with an interview with an Amazon worker in Pennsylvania. Wait till you hear this horror story. So, but let's start with the Biden stuff. So, thank you, Michelle McKay, $10. So happy you're here. Love getting real news. Love giving you the news. So keep it coming in the super chats if you can. We got 200 people watching. 135 of you have pressed that like button. It's the thumbs up button right under the live stream. Sorry to keep reminding you, but it's a sad state of affairs. We gotta get more likes. That's the only way to get around YouTube suppression. So Joe Biden went on Morning Joe this morning. Before he went on, essentially it was all choreographed. You know, like Morning Joe tweets out, we're having Joe Biden on it. We're going to be asking him about this sexual assault allegation. So right then and there, Joe Biden obviously got who knows how many days of heads up. And I'm sure the negotiations, you know, to agree to go on Morning Joe, you know, the campaign said we're willing to touch X, Y, and Z. We're not willing to touch, you know, A, B, and C. So that's how this works. I could tell you because I worked at MSNBC and Fox. That's how it works. Thank you, Mike, $5. Is there a way to send the text like a phone tree to some key people with unlimited texting? You lost me at phone tree. Email Jen because that sounds good to me, but I don't really know. But it sucks because it's like a double-edged sword. It's good when we grow our text list. It's good the more people that sign up for our text list. But it actually, the more people we sign up, then the more credits we need. It's very convoluted. And the more expensive it is to send out the text. But we're willing to spend the money for the text if it makes a big difference in live viewers. Because the more live viewers we have, the more chance for super chats, the more chance for GoFundMes, and most importantly, the more chance to grow this channel. So thank you, Mike, for the $5. Any questions about that? Email info@statuscoup.com. Kerry Payman, $1.99. Love Jen, just like me, but I am 69. Love you at 69. So what's amazing about this is Biden basically went on, I guess for cable news standards, Mika Scarborough, Joe's wife, Mika Brzezinski. I don't know if she's still Brzezinski or Scarborough, who knows. But by cable news standards, it was kind of a tougher interview than I was expecting. But the whole interview, and I'm not playing the whole interview, was essentially going by Joe Biden and his campaign's framing, which, by the way, if I was interviewing Joe Biden, I would say, Joe Biden, what do you have to say that one of your top campaign people was essentially doing spin and PR for Harvey Weinstein? That would be Anita Dunn. Did she help you prep for this interview? I think that's a fair question. Who you surround yourself with says a lot about you, right? Not a question about Anita Dunn and Harvey Weinstein to Joe Biden. You know, Bernie Sanders was raked over the coals for people who tweet, you know, but not Joe Biden. But to me, Mika Brzezinski did not ask the two most important things. I'm going to start with this. Nancy Bernard, $9.99 in the super chat. Member since the beginning. Thank you for the text. Unemployed now. Love your work. So important. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And by the way, we're not, just because we're not covering certain things doesn't mean we're still investigating some follow-ups on Flint and some other projects we're working on. So still doing the investigations while trying to go live every day. So I want to play this part because I think it's important.
The first.
Okay, please.
Go ahead. The first is about your University of Delaware records. Do you agree with the reporting that those records were supposed to be revealed to the public and then they were resealed for a longer period of time until after you leave, quote, public life? And if you agree with that, if that's what happened, why did that happen?
Because, look, the fact is that there's a lot of things of speeches I've made, positions I've taken, interviews that I did overseas with people, all of those things relating to my job. And the idea that they would all be made public in the fact while I was running for public office, they could be really taken out of context. The papers are position papers. They are documents that existed and that when I, for example, when I met with Putin or when I met with whomever, and all of that to be fodder in a campaign at this time, I don't know of anybody who's done anything like that. And so the National Archives is the only place there would be anything having to do with personnel records. There are no personnel records in the Biden papers at the university.
So,
putting aside, to me, a very telling statement that why would I release information for people to vet my record? Putting that aside, because that was ridiculous on its own. He just said there are no personnel records at the University of Delaware. Okay. Then do they dispute this Business Insider story? Biden camp refuses to open up Senate papers that could shed light on accusers' claim, but has sent operatives to look through the records. Wait a minute. The campaign of Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden has repeatedly insisted that journalists rigorously vet the claims of former Biden staffer Tara Reade, who alleges she was sexually harassed while working in Biden's Senate office and sexually assaulted by Biden in '93. But Biden is refusing to allow public access to his senatorial archives, even though they may contain records that could shed light on Reade's accusation, and as his campaign operatives have accessed the papers in the past year. Reade came forward on a podcast last month to detail her assault allegations against the former vice president. Since then, she has told multiple outlets, including Insider, that Biden pushed her up against the wall, reached under her skirt, and penetrated her with his fingers in spring or summer of 1993. So earlier this week, Reade's former neighbor, Linda Lacoste, told Insider that Reade had discussed the assault allegations with her in the 90s. So let me find the... But one thing the Biden campaign is not encouraging journalists to do is check Biden's Senate archives for any records that could corroborate or undermine her accusations. The records, 1,875 boxes, remain sealed within the Special Collections Department at the University of Delaware, and the Biden campaign is ignoring calls to open them up. But the campaign itself is curious about what is in those boxes and has dispatched operatives on at least one occasion to search through them, Insider has learned. Andrea Boyle Tippett, a spokesperson for the University of Delaware, confirmed to Insider that people from the campaign have access to collections since Biden announced his presidential campaign in spring 2019. She added that the University of Delaware's library closed in mid-March because of the coronavirus, and no one from the Biden campaign has gone to the library since its closure. Well, I don't know. Call me a rookie journalist here. But if you're Mika Brzezinski, he's saying there's no personnel records at the University of Delaware. It's just old speeches I gave, transcripts of interviews, white papers, policy papers. Oh, University of Delaware just confirmed his campaign has been there looking through records. So what are they looking through? If Joe Biden is saying there's no personnel matters there. Now, it could be true that his campaign went through records there and found that there are no personnel records there, and learned they are instead at the National Archives or the Senate Archives, not at the University of Delaware. That could be true, but he wasn't asked about it. So because she didn't ask him about it, which is a very important point, she says she filed a complaint, not about sexual assault, but about sexual harassment. But if she filed a complaint, obviously his campaign is not just like going to University of Delaware on a whim. It would come from the top. Yeah, go look to see if there's anything about her there. Well, if they went there to see if there's anything about her or records there, then common sense would indicate Joe Biden knows there might be personnel records there. She didn't ask that, and that's important. Because I look at this not from the lens of Me Too. I look at this the same way I look at any journalistic story, and that is, where are the holes? Where does something not smell right? You know, Alyssa Milano, who is a major hypocrite and kind of has no soul, obviously, penned a piece of paper, penned an op-ed that, sexual assault allegations and sexual harassment, it's not always black and white. There's a lot of gray. She certainly wasn't talking like that when it was Brett Kavanaugh. But no, with journalism, yes, sometimes there's gray. But with most journalistic stories, if you poke hard enough, there is a lot of black and white. So to me, Mika Brzezinski kept stressing the point about the University of Delaware archives, and Joe Biden keeps saying there's nothing to find there because there's no personnel records. Then why were your campaign operatives going through records there? And by the way, University of Delaware said nobody from the campaign has been here since March because of coronavirus. All right, but they didn't tell us when the last time was. People from Biden's campaign could have been there in January, could have been there in February, could have been there in early March. Tara Reade was starting to make her accusations. She went on with Katie Halper at the end of March. So it could have been on their radar. This woman's coming forward here. This woman's coming forward about a sexual assault allegation. Thank you, Mark Gordon, $25 in the GoFundMe. Thank you, Kelly Elaine, $10 in GoFundMe. We're now at 98,265. Thank you so much, guys and girls. So that is a major inconsistency that Mika Brzezinski did not ask about. I don't have any reason to believe the Business Insider report is wrong, because Business Insider had broken the story, I think 2 days before that, about Tara Reade's neighbor from the 1990s corroborating that Tara Reade, I believe in 1995, told the story and said she was assaulted by Biden. So 2 years after it allegedly happened. Now, to be clear, just because other people are corroborating her accusation or corroborating that she told them about it doesn't mean she's not making it up. I mean, you could tell a lot of people something that's not true. But with something where it is he said, she said, when you find consistencies, that is important. So Mika Brzezinski also did not mention or ask him about the fact that there are people, her neighbor, her brother, corroborating that she told this story, not recently, but when it happened or when it allegedly happened. So again, I see in the live chat, some people are saying, oh, Mika did a pretty good job. Yes, for cable news standards, it wasn't the softball we expected. But with something like this, you have to push them on inconsistencies. Vice President Biden, where is Business Insider getting that your campaign operatives went to search the records? And if they did go to search the records, why were they searching the records if you're saying there's no personnel matters in the University of Delaware? Lena, $5. Saw Tom Hartman earlier, and he went through a list of why Tara is lying type stuff. Here we go. Honestly, I'm taking the political glasses, my political lens off. So Joe Biden being awful and being a warmonger and a corporatist has nothing to do with this. I'm just looking at this straight. And that includes giving Biden the benefit of the doubt. But that is a major inconsistency. You would have to explain to me, why were your campaign operatives dispatched to the University of Delaware to look through boxes if there's no records? If you're right that there's no records there, there's no personnel records there. You can't just allow people like Joe Biden to just say things and just, well, we'll take it. Take it on face value. Larry, I'm live. Bye-bye. Gotta love my father. So that's the first inconsistency, that he was not asked about that. Secondly, again, just looking at this journalistically, where are the holes? The New York Times, which frankly, I wasn't so impressed with their, quote, investigation. I also don't understand why their political reporters were doing it, including Sidney Ember, who was a hostile reporter to Bernie Sanders, and whose, I think, boyfriend or husband works on Wall Street, but putting that aside, I don't know why they didn't have their reporters that broke the Harvey Weinstein story looking into it. Seems like you would want those reporters who broke such an amazing story, I think they won a Pulitzer, investigating this. But they did find that 2 interns at the time said they never saw her any inappropriate conduct by Mr. Biden, or saw her directly interact with him in any capacity, but recalled that she abruptly stopped supervising them in April 1993 before their end of their internship. Others who worked in the office at the time said they remembered Miss Reade, but not any inappropriate behavior. So 2 interns are corroborating what she said, that after this happened and after she they're not corroborating that she complained, but Tara Reade said, after I made allegation of sexual harassment, this and that, I was immediately demoted. She said, put into an office without windows, blah, 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 blah. So you have 2 interns corroborating, yeah, one day she was just gone. She wasn't managing us anymore. Now, Joe Biden could say, honestly, this is 27 years ago. I don't remember who was what in my office. You know, a lot of these things were done without me knowing. You know, my chief of staff ran the office, or this person ran the office, or whatever. Thank you for the super chat. Robert Copeland, $10. We need to grow Status Coup. Jordan, what other stories would Status Coup do if you had the money and it was safe to go back out in the public? Hold that thought, Robert. I don't want to interrupt my flow. We'll get to that a little bit later. Great question. Jen, remind me to get to that later. Arrest Fauci and Gates? Why are we arresting Fauci? What's going on, Aguevo? What did Fauci do? I don't know what Fauci did. I think he's one of the few good things in the Trump administration. Not Daddy Fauci. By the way, we got 350 people watching. 218 of you have pressed that like button. I need another 150 likes. I'm not asking for my ego. The more people that press the thumbs up button right under the live stream video, the more people that will see our live stream. That's how the algorithm works. If not, YouTube does not push these live streams forward, particularly of independent channels. So that's a major inconsistency that Joe Biden was not asked about. Well, Vice President Biden, you've had time to prepare for this. Why was Miss Reade, who was an office aide who was managing your interns, why are these interns corroborating what she said, which she was demoted, basically. One day, she was just not managing them. Do you have an answer for that, Vice President Biden? Sure, he could say, I really couldn't tell you. I don't remember. And lawyers, by the way, if you look at people that are under investigation, if they do interviews, 9 out of 10 times, I can't recall. I don't remember. That's people who are lawyered up. His statement that he put out was written by lawyers and PR people, possibly Anita Dunn, who was doing the spin for Vulture Harvey Weinstein. But it's an inconsistency. He has not been asked. His campaign has not been asked that I know of. Why was she demoted? Why was she fired? She was demoted and then fired from the office. These are not like up for debate. They're not denying this, but they're also not being asked about it. She didn't leave on her own volition. And by the way, as she told the story, she was basically not able to get a job with anyone else in Congress because it's kind of a small club. People are put on do not hire lists. So these are two major things, and they might seem small to you, but when you're talking about a physical allegation, I brought him my gym bag, he was pushed me against the wall, he put his finger inside of me, and you don't have any eyewitnesses or anything to knock it down, you have to look for holes. And those are major holes in my view. Carl Knight, $5. This goes to Larry for all the heartache you've caused him, haha. You know, I love my father, but he's caused me not a heartache, but sometimes a headache. That's a story for another. I love you, Dad, if you're watching. But you got to stop with this Trump stuff and watching Fox News. I'm worried about you. So we could praise Mika Brzezinski for not being as awful as we thought she was going to be, but Mika Brzezinski did not mention one word about Tara Reade's mother calling into Larry King. Listen, are we saying that she's lying, that was her mother, that was her mother's voice? The woman who called into Larry King was from where her mother was living then. She said, my daughter has a problem with a prominent senator. She wouldn't go in detail because Tara didn't want her to. So that checks out. The Larry King called it. That was her mother. The neighbor is talking about this. That Tara Reade came to me 2 years after it's allegedly happened and told the exact story she's telling now. You know, the partisan response is, well, her story changed. She never talked about this assault. Well, that's true. According to Tara Reade, she didn't explain the assault part because she had a young daughter and didn't want to traumatize her childhood with all this publicity. I mean, I don't know. I can't get in her head. There's no way to know if she's being honest or not about that. But the story she is telling now, people are corroborating that she told it back in the early 1990s. And the holes that I see are not coming from Tara, they're coming from Biden. And because our media doesn't want to investigate this, let's be clear, they do not want to investigate this. The most you're going to get from Morning Joe and MSNBC is that. I don't see any hashtags about Tara on MJ, Tara on Morning Joe. Why is it that Tara is going on Fox News? Why is it that Morning Joe is having Joe Biden on, but as far as I know, they're not asking Tara Reade to come on? Isn't this the quintessential story where you should have both sides? I applaud them for having Biden on, and it was somewhat of a tough interview. Again, they didn't ask these two things. Again, they went with the framing that the Biden campaign has put out there. They didn't mention the corroboration that she told this story. But why is nobody pressuring them to have her on? They're not going to. I've barely seen CNN cover this today. And they're going to hide under the cloak of coronavirus. That's the top story. Just like all these networks have been ignoring Jen and my major bombshell. Aguevo Pelon, $9.99. The 1% controls the software. At the keystroke, they change the final count. Look at Bernie's outcome. Can't fool me twice. Fauci is a fraud. Look at his past. Send us info on his past, but I like Fauci so far. info@statuscoup.com. So the other element here, and Jen and I have talked about this, behind the scenes, but with people like Joe Biden, if he did this, it's very rare that it's a one-off. It's very rare that they would do something so heinous and there's not other behavior. So that brings me to, again, could only report what the accusations are. This came out today. A woman claims Biden sexually harassed her when she was 14 years old by complimenting her breasts. So, not an assault allegation, but inappropriate. A woman says she was sexually harassed by presumptive Democratic Party presidential nominee Joe Biden when she was 14 years old. The woman, Eva Murray, told Law and Crime that Biden complimented her on the size of her breasts at the first state gridiron dinner and show in 2008, a long-running roast of and party for politicians, journalists, and prominent business figures held each year in Delaware. Murray says she remembers the event occurring sometime around May of that year. One friend and her sister said that Murray told her the details of the alleged incident more or less immediately after it happened. 4 other friends of Murray said they were told about the incident with the same details between 2 and 3 years after it originally occurred. Law and Crime interviewed Murray, her sister, and those friends over the course of multiple days. Murray is the niece of former Republican Senate candidate Christine I'm Not a Witch O'Donnell. Sorry, I had to throw that in there. And said she occasionally received school credit for attending such political events. O'Donnell was running a long-shot campaign against Biden at the time that the alleged sexual harassment incident occurred. The Biden campaign, of course, did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Biden is currently under fire over the allegations that he sexually assaulted former staffer Tara Reade. According to Gridiron's dinner secretary, Kathy Kloko, the roast is held the first Saturday of every May, which would place the 2008 event on May 3rd of that year. Kloko went on to note that until recently, the event was secretive and did not release information such as guests, lists, or photographs of the events. I remember, quote, I remember walking into the lobby and being in awe of all the people in such fancy clothes, Murray said at an interview. Our 2 parties of people gravitated towards each other and everyone started saying their hellos. When it was Biden and my aunt's turn to say hello, he quickly turned to me and asked how old I was. I replied with my age, and he replied with the comment, 14? You're very well endowed for 14. I was confused, but it was definitely weird. He looked me up and down and hovered his eyes on my chest, so I had some clue the notion of his comment, but didn't fully understand it at the time. We quickly separated from his area after the encounter. Murray, who is now 26 and engaged with a son and a daughter, was in middle school at the time Biden allegedly made the comments about her breasts. She said that she attended a few additional campaign events with her aunt after Biden made the alleged remarks, and she described being anxious and feeling sick to her stomach around him, or upon learning that he would also be attending any such future events. Quote, I feel his comments were verbal sexual harassment. I think I was too naive to realize exactly what it meant at the time, but I vividly remember the uncomfortable feeling I had in the pit of my stomach during the whole encounter. It wasn't Biden's word alone that made me so uncomfortable. It was the look, the tone, the whole general vibe was off. Murray acknowledged the timing of her allegations would likely invite accusations that she was acting politically, but she insisted that was not the case. Murray said that she was personally motivated to speak out because she began seeing Biden's name and face appearing all over Facebook in early April after Bernie dropped out of the Democratic primary. She said that many of her friends started posting about voting for Biden, so Murray started off by telling each of those friends her story. She says she did this over and over. Quote, It got overwhelming repeating myself on everyone's posts, so I made a master thread with the intentions of informing my friend and family who I care very much about just what kind of man Biden is. Murray told Law and Crime she was upset about what Biden said to her rather than anything having to do with politics. No man or woman should get away with acting that way, and that is what this boils down to. So, again, that's not an assault allegation, but, you know, the bottom line is, not to get into psychology, but it's clear, because we've already established this, Joe Biden has an issue with appropriate norms, particularly with young people. I mean, the video is the video. You've seen his invasion of children's space and sniffing children and just weird things. And we've seen women come out saying he made us uncomfortable. He was touching us and kissing our neck and doing all sorts of things. And this is not the first person who said it wasn't just the touching, it was how he was looking. So, again, it's not such a jump that somebody who was like this and would make comments to a young girl like that, I mean, well endowed, is essentially saying, excuse my French, ladies, you got nice tits. People know what that means. So, look how long it took for the Tara Reade allegation to be investigated or even get a hearing on a national cable news outlet. Do we think Eva Murray's accusation is going to go far? Oh, Christine O'Donnell's the not a witch niece, partisan. All I know, I don't know what happened between Joe Biden and Tara Reade, but there's enough women coming out about harassment, personal invasion of space, inappropriate touching, inappropriate boundary of space, that there's a pattern here. And yes, it's fair to point out the current president has, I think 13 to 15, maybe more, sexual assault allegations and rape allegations and harassment allegations. But are we really going to set the standard here for November that, well, we got to go with the lesser of two rapists, alleged rapists? I'm not going to do that. Donald Trump is awful, but I don't agree with, well, and basically Alyssa Milano and other people are saying, if it is true, Trump. Well, no. There are better options. So, my prediction, I don't want to minimize this with like a political prediction. I would expect other women to come out. Jen and I have talked about this a lot. These things are not isolated. He's been in public life for 30, 40 years. He clearly thought an arrogance that he could just speak this way, do certain things, and nobody was going to call him out because it's one big club, as George Carlin famously said, and nobody was going to call him out. And when he was doing these things, there was no Me Too. There was no social media. Male congressmen, senators, CEOs, whatever, journalists were allowed to get away with unspeakable things. So we'll stay on it. But based on Mika Brzezinski's interview, which is probably the only interview he'll do, and as far as I could tell from Twitter and the media reaction, people are just reporting what he said, and that's it. Nobody's going into the two inconsistencies and holes I've outlined here. So, Aguevo 499, Biden will let Gates dog tag us, vote for a progressive third party, if not vote for Trump. I don't know who Gates is, and no, there's no progressive. Bill Gates. There's no scenario where progressives should be voting for Donald Trump. If you don't want to vote for Biden, that's fine, but Donald Trump is not somebody you should be voting for. If you don't want to watch, if you want to unsubscribe, Aguevo, go be my guest. So, let's get to Mayday. Mayday. And by the way, we got 415 people watching. 300 of you have pressed the like button. I need another 100 or so of you. Please press that thumbs up button.
Try to answer that guy's question about what you would be covering.
Yes, I'm going to answer that later. I want to get to Mayday. Thank you. And Colin Tooley updating our amazing portrait of the United Corporations of America right now. This is Mayday, right in front of you. We are that Titanic. We have hit the iceberg. If you could see, we are leaking. We'll probably have to do an update with the Titanic actually sinking. And in that, we tried to make it a yacht. In that mini yacht is the oligarchs and the bourgeoisie drinking their champagne and bubbly as we sink. That is the United Corporations of America. That's how it's been, and that's what it is right now during the coronavirus pandemic. So we have today strikes, worker strikes, as well as boycotts of using these companies at Amazon, Target, Walmart, FedEx, Instacart, few others. I'd love it to be more than one day, because I think one day is one day, but you got to start somewhere. We're seeing great mini displays, just looking at Twitter here. So cancel rent signs. We're seeing, this is really something. People, activists in New York City. Look at this. So that's activists in body bags with signs "Recovery for All." But the most important part of today is the coordinated and organized rent strikes that are going on in some states. It might not sound a lot to you, but you got to start somewhere. There are coordinated rent strikes going on. As you see here, there's coordinated. People aren't using Walmart, Amazon, FedEx, Whole Foods, Target, Instacart, Shipped. These people are greedy. Even one day, they don't like it. We have, let's see. This I wanted to read to you. Frontline workers call for Mayday strike over worker conditions. There's Amazon lobbyist and former Obama press secretary. Workers at some of America's largest companies are planning to strike on Friday, accusing their employers of covering up the scale of the COVID outbreak in their workplace and failing to provide them with protective equipment. Labor organizers at Amazon, its grocery subsidiary Whole Foods, Instacart, and Target, owned Shipped, have said they plan to walk out on May 1st, a holiday commonly celebrated internationally as a day to honor workers. Quote, "It's a matter of life and death," said Christian Smalls, the former Amazon worker who, by the way, I first interviewed. Jimmy Dore got the credit. Love Jimmy. Just to set the record straight, technically to the letter of YouTube, it was status Coup first. But I digress. Christian Smalls said, Smalls and other Amazon workers are calling for the online retailer to extend the amount of unpaid time off its employees. If it offers employees until June 1st, make cleaning supplies more widely available to workers, and close down any building where someone has tested positive for the coronavirus. By the way, David Sirota, the journalist, just broke a corrupt story. Thank you, M.O. Bailey, $5. I'm afraid the United States may be like the former Soviet Union by next year, broke and separated with the wealth concentrated in the ruling class. M.O. Bailey, thanks for the $5, but maybe like? I think we're pretty much there in terms of broke and separated with the wealth concentrated in the ruling class. But I want to advance that. Oh, David Sirota broke a story that basically Amazon shareholders, shockingly, were about to vote and essentially shame Jeff Bezos to do a vote on providing all warehouses with the proper PPE equipment, masks, gloves, and Amazon's army of lobbyists lobbied the Trump Securities and Exchange Commission to make sure Amazon shareholders could not vote on this. We're going to have David Sirota on Monday. So I'm excited about that. We'll be having David on to discuss that and other great reports that he's doing now as an independent journalist. He was an advisor for Bernie. Now he's back to doing the investigative journalism thing. So I got 2 interviews for you. I'm going to start with an interview I did with an Amazon worker this afternoon. The face is blurred out. His voice is distorted because we want to protect his employment. But this is really, really shocking stuff. And that's why you're never going to see it on CNN or MSNBC. Let's take a look. Hey, it's Jordan. I am joined by an Amazon worker. Will remain anonymous so that they could keep their job. We've spoken before. Today, Amazon, Instacart, Walmart, Target, FedEx, a lot of workers from these companies are striking as part of Mayday. You're working, so no judgment on you. So let's pick up where we left off last time when we spoke last time, which I think was like 3 weeks ago. Amazon was not being transparent at your plant in Pennsylvania. Workers were kind of having to piece together how many workers were actually positive with COVID. And it seemed that workers were basically, even if they did feel sick, still coming to work because, of course, unless you have a positive test, Amazon was not giving you paid sick leave. What has changed since then?
Yeah, when we first talked, it was just starting to get rolling here now, and I'm in a town where it just got crazy real fast, and in a plant that got crazy. We definitely have the most by far in the country, except for outside of New York City. It's not even close. They did give us specific numbers up until 2 weeks ago, so I guess during that bailout bill, the companies were no longer having to disclose the amount. So we were getting texts like we had 11 new cases, we had 9 new cases, we had 4 new cases. That, at last count, everyone's got a little bit of different numbers, but it was in the 60s. And then for the last 2 weeks, it's like we have additional cases. We have additional cases. There's no numbers. They don't have to disclose that anymore. We work in a town where 1 out of 25 people actually have COVID-19. It's crazy. Like nobody else in the county or even surrounding areas is even close to those numbers. So that's why we kind of exploded here. So
how many people live in your town that 1 out of 25 have it?
I don't know how big this town is because I don't live here, but
okay.
It's a mid-sized town, definitely. Okay. It's not Allentown or any of those, but it's a smaller town like that. But there's a good amount of people here. But like I said, it was a real slow rollout. I mean, at first it took forever just to even get gloves, and then forever to get masks. And then finally they started doing some temperature screenings. They point the gun at your head and make sure you're but you had to be under 100 point something, so then you could still even work. And then they sent up thermal scanners where you just stand in front of things and they just give you the thumbs up or not if you can go to work. Mm-hmm. The craziest thing now is that, and from everything I'm hearing, I know I work in a section where I do, privy to some information, but definitely not from on high. But they are setting up tables to actually roll out COVID-19 tests that they could get back in a day. Now, I don't know how many hospitals and, doctors don't have these tests. What I'm hearing is Jeff Bezos bought a company that manufactures these tests, and we're going to roll out next week. You come in, you got to get the test. If you test positive, they deactivate your badge, send you home for 2 weeks. I mean, you will with pay, so I'll give them that. But where they're getting, we have 2,000 plus employees where, that they're getting 2,000 tests. They could do this and turn around in a day. Who's administering these? We don't know yet.
Who's administering? The janitor?
Exactly. I mean, right now the people that took your temperature were just workers. I mean, there was no doctors I haven't seen doctors or nurses or anyone involved. So this, just in the last day or two, we've been hearing this, and I'm hearing it from real good sources. And if it happens next week, I'll definitely let you know how that all goes. I mean, because we'll know, because we'll be getting the test. I mean, but that is just the craziest thing I've heard so far. It's just a weird, crazy work environment.
And you said your warehouse definitely has the highest positives in the country, you said. Where do you get that from?
I haven't seen anything near 60s. Our last numbers were in the 60s.
Of positive.
Yeah, so we definitely got texts up until 60-something, and we've gotten at least 5 that said additional. So we got to be in the 70s.
And now when the managers or whomever sends out the text, they're not giving you actual numbers?
Yeah, now all they have to do is say additional.
Huh. And when we first talked, you were saying that there are people that feel sick but are working anyway because they're not getting paid time off if they don't want to work. Do you still see that where people seem to be under the weather?
No, once these numbers started getting crazy in our place, for March and April, you didn't have to come in. I mean, you wouldn't get paid, but you did not have to come in. So this 1 out of 3 workers were maybe coming in. Starting today, May 1st, no more unlimited time off. You have to come back in. They're going to use all this because they hired so many temporary, new hires to cover the people that weren't coming in. People are, desperate enough to need a job and, feed their families, which you can't blame anybody for that. Mm-hmm. But starting today, everyone's got to come in. And if you hit, I mean, you get a certain amount of hours, but it's back to normal. So if you use up your unpaid time off, you're fired.
Wow. And you might not know this because, of course, the mainstream media is not going to cover it. But David Sirota, who's a journalist, just broke a story that, okay, so basically Amazon lobbied Trump's Securities and Exchange Commission to essentially, like, Amazon shareholders, I'm kind of shocked. I'm shocked by this, wanted to push a vote to make Bezos and management provide the proper PPE, masks, gloves, all that stuff. And Amazon's lobbyists, they got an army, basically got Trump's SEC to basically stop Amazon shareholders from being able to vote for this. I mean, this is some real Hunger Games stuff here, if you ask me. What does that say to you? I mean, you're working. I assume right now you're getting some type of hazard pay?
Yeah, we did for, once, everyone stopped coming in, they had to give something. So we did get $2 extra an hour and double time for overtime, up to 59 hours a week you could work. And that ends, I think we got the next 2 weeks, we get 2 more weeks, and then that stops.
So what does it say to you that Jeff Bezos is the richest man on earth?
That made it $22 trillion already this year.
Right.
Alone.
22 trillion?
Yes. Sorry, billion. I'm getting crazy.
If he made 22 trillion, I'd be more pissed off. 22 billion. So what does it say to you that not only does he have the capability to provide these things, but his lobbyists, instead of just spending the money on providing it, his lobbyists are trying to get Trump's SEC to basically stop shareholders, which would be a really embarrassing thing for him if shareholders voted to force them to do this.
Yeah.
What does it say to you about how they feel about workers, just whether they live or not, really?
They don't care. I mean, it's so obvious. I mean, we're in assembly line. With all these, how many people lost their job? 30 million people lost their jobs in the last 6 weeks. They got 30 million people that are going to line up for this job. So, for every person that goes, there's somebody that's going to come in. Like I said, the only reason that so many people were not coming in here was because we were hit so hard. I mean, I'm looking at others that have, 5 cases, 10 cases. We were like so fast into the 30s and 40s and 50s that, people were just actually too, that's why this warehouse has been different than all the others.
Well, I would also add, and again, not a scientist, this is just my opinion, but Pennsylvania has been environmentally decimated in the last 20 years, and fracking. Josh Fox brilliantly brought this to the light. Fracking has gone berserk in Pennsylvania. So all of this air pollution, water pollution, these kind of environmental factors would make people a little bit more vulnerable to a deadly pandemic.
Absolutely. The hardest hit town in Italy is the most polluted town in all of Europe. So, I mean, yeah, it all goes hand in hand. Absolutely.
And, I'm not judging you that you're working today. That's I understand not everybody has a different situation. But what does it say to you that by default, since so many of your workers aren't coming in because of the hazard and the risk, they are they're giving you double overtime, these kind of things. Wouldn't that indicate that a collective strike nationwide, they'd be forced to do right?
Yeah, that's it. It's just been so scattered. I mean, for us to really, we'd have, if every Amazon shut down for one day, but I have to be that coordinated. And it's just not there yet. We're not close to that. Too many people are going to come in because we're in the craziest desperate time. It's not like we're in a normal time right now.
But I also just interviewed someone, and a lot, like, I don't know your situation, but a lot of workers, their wives or whatever, their husbands got laid off. So now they are the only one bringing home money. So it's kind of like maybe you'd consider it if your spouse wasn't laid off. But if your spouse is laid off, if you just go on strike and risk losing your job, then what do you do?
Yeah, I mean, I would love, I mean, if we get back to some, I mean, I would love to have every Amazon just shut down for a day. It would be the greatest thing I'd ever seen. And I would be so glad to be part of it because, I mean, there's so much stuff that he's making. Yeah, it's crazy. It's infuriating and it's frustrating. It's everything, but it's, this is a whole critique of capitalism, end stage capitalism. So I mean, there's so much beyond just working in an Amazon that we could go into. But I got to get back to work, Jordan. And
real quick, one question.
Oh yeah.
I feel like we have a race to the bottom here. Trump is a phony populist. I'm going to bring back all the factories and workers are getting screwed. He's obviously allowing all this to happen. Biden, I'm Scranton Joe, but I don't hear him taking on Jeff Bezos or speaking out for workers like you. So
Obama's the guy that worked for Obama's like they're that one of Amazon's PR guys. So yeah, of course.
So what is a worker to do? There doesn't seem to be a lot of hope in electoral politics right now. The choices.
I don't feel any hope right now. I wish at the end of the day, God, this would take hours to even talk about, but I just really appreciate you staying on top of all these kind of stories, and congrats on that story from the Flint, Michigan. Oh, that was crazy. I was watching that on Rise. I saw you on Rising the other day. Congrats on that.
Thanks, man. Spread the word because the media is not covering it, of course.
Yeah. Right.
All right.
Oh, so I thought you were on MSNBC the next day.
All right, man. Be well.
All right. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Hope you enjoyed that last video. Hop on over to statuscoup.com where you can sign up for our email list and become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. Membership is how we grow. That's statuscoup.com/join. And remember, join our email list so we can grow the revolution with you. America, beacon of freedom around the world. Shining city on a hill. But if you're Amazon, if you're Jeff Bezos, who was bought off the government, by the way, well, tough luck to your workers. If you die, you die. I need to make my money. And by the way, in this case, which is rare, the shareholders were the ones trying to do the right thing, and Jeff Bezos' lobbyists lobbied Trump and his administration to basically forbid Amazon shareholders from having a vote, to mandate that the company provide across the board PPE to its workers. Think about that. I think the conditions are here for a general strike, and they are getting worse by the day. It's unbelievable. Thank you, Canvas Dancer, $10. Hope this helps with sending texts. If my stimulus check ever arrives on Social Security so they have direct deposits, but I'm waiting for a check, if it arrives, I'd like to become a monthly member. That's so kind of you. Yes, we don't want to push too many things at once, but we are built on membership. So if you have $5 a month, if you give us an option, we'd love you to do membership. If you could only do one, definitely do become a sustaining, recurring member rather than GoFundMe, because membership is how we grow. We were growing extremely fast, being on the campaign trail, and then all this pandemic stuff happened, and we've lost about 50 between members and patrons. We probably lost at least 75 so far. So we're hoping we don't lose too many more, but we get it. Most of the people that are canceling are actually sending us nice messages when they cancel that they love us. It's just they got to cut all costs, right? As many costs as they can right now. So that's why we relaunched our GoFundMe. So I have another interview for you that I really don't think you're going to see these kind of interviews elsewhere, because nobody gives a damn in corporate media. And independent media a lot of times is too busy commentating on things instead of talking to the people that are being affected. So I saw this, actually Rising had a short clip with this individual, so I reached out to him. Total Wine, which is a pretty well-known wine store around the country. I had one near my college in Tampa, Florida. Total Wine, actually, the CEO is a Democratic congressman. So right there is a pretty thick conflict of interest, I would think. He owns a big wine chain, but has votes and influence over matters of alcohol and things. Welcome, new member, Jesse! Now at 1,855. Love you, Jesse. Sign up, statuscoup.com/join. So, Rashad, I did a long interview because Rashad is, I think, kind of going on that Christian Smalls Amazon whistleblower route. He's blowing the whistle. He's probably going to get fired. I've been speaking to him. They've been all of a sudden people are looking at his LinkedIn. All of a sudden he sees his Twitter is being monitored. So they're definitely seeing, his bosses are definitely looking into him because he publicly spoke out against the company. Wait till you hear the greed. If you thought there was greed in this country, just wait till you hear this. Let's take a listen. Hey, it's Jordan. Delighted to be joined by Rashad Lloyd. You're in Maryland, and you're with Total Wine, which back in college, I remember in Tampa, I went to Total Wine a couple times. It's Mayday, so you got companies and workers like from Amazon, Walmart, FedEx, a lot of other workers from different companies are striking. And I came across you because you had a little bit of a rant about hazard pay. Your colleagues are basically putting your health at risk, but your company, like many other companies, are basically demanding you do that without any perks for you guys. So can you kind of talk about what's going on at Total Wine there?
Sure. So the long story short about what's going on at Total Wine, up until about 2 weeks ago, we were actually receiving $2 extra an hour as hazard pay. From talking to a couple of my colleagues, I found out yesterday that the regular full-time employees who always had worked there were actually only receiving $1 extra, and the seasonal employees were actually receiving $2. And that was suddenly cut off without any notification to us. We actually started finding out because BuzzFeed broke an article about it. It was talking about David Trone, who's the congressional representative in Maryland's 6th district, how his billion-dollar company quietly ended our hazard pay. And we were just like astounded because no one said a word to us. And it's incredibly disheartening because we have been putting up record-breaking sales numbers. And I mean, just earlier this week in a morning meeting, I found out that my store had done 82% of its entire week's sales budget Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. We still have 4 days left where we are just going to be generating mad profit. And, we're told the company is saying that they want to reevaluate the hazard pay because they want to make sure that the business can continue to grow in the future. They want to make sure it can stay profitable and sustainable. But, on one hand, we're looking at us doing back-breaking labor every day in the store, working in dangerous conditions, surrounded by customers, despite the fact that, a lot of states have stay-at-home orders. Because we're considered essential, customers are still allowed to come in and shop. We're doing contactless curbside delivery. We do delivery with DoorDash too. So we're processing all these orders and helping customers in store. It's mandatory that we wear gloves, masks. If you see this little pin on me now, it's a pin that says, please stay 6 feet away from us. And we're doing all this, but now we're being told that we're not worth the $2 or $1 an hour extra hazard pay.
Mm-hmm. And also, I mean, you're going to have more customers because people, by and large, are stuck at home. Cabin fever is real, so people might want more wine than they normally, or more alcohol than they normally would consume because they're just sitting at home. Helps pass the time, whatever. So you probably would have pretty high volume of customers in there right now.
Yeah, we have a tremendous volume of customers still in store, especially at my location, and like the orders are just taking off massively. We used to have in store like concierge teams, wine managers who sat there with customers and they went through the buying process, recommendations. All that's been converted to cashiers to process in-store orders and merchandisers to get like delivery orders out. So the sales are really just like jumping right now.
So you mentioned a congressman who owns Total Wine. Am I understanding that right?
Yes. So Total Wine is the nation's largest private liquor business. It's owned by David and Robert Trone. They're a set of brothers. David Trone is the congressional representative for the 6th District of Maryland. So part of what I'm seeing, not just in Total Wine, but in a lot of the retailers that have essential employees, is, for years and years and years, we've always been told that retail work is low skilled, it's not deserving of a living wage. And right now, we're really seeing that retail is one of the things that's driving the economy. The economy that everybody's so terrified of crashing, we're the ones keeping it up on our back. And we have a failure from private corporations to take care of their employees, and a public failure from Congress to legislate to protect employees. And in Total Wine, you have both of them, because David Trone is the owner and he's also in Congress. And I actually have something pulled up here. I just want to read to you. It's one of his most recent tweets from his congressional account in the last day. It says, I spoke with Maryland labor leaders this morning about how the COVID-19 pandemic is impacting our workers. Each industry is being hit hard by this crisis, and I am working with our federal, state, and local partners to ensure our workers get the PPE and paid leave they deserve. So on the right hand, he's trying to say, I'm doing everything I can to support workers throughout this crisis. But his left hand has slipped into his own employees' pockets and taken that hazard pay he was giving them without any notification.
And also, he and other Congress people don't seem to be in a rush to get back, citing an increase in COVID cases in D.C. So they're demanding you and your colleagues work. I assume you don't really have a serious paid leave policy. If you don't work, you don't get paid. Yet, for himself and others, he's not applying that same standard.
Well, yeah. So for anybody who doesn't know the exact dates involved, Congress, the House was supposed to be back off of recess originally April 20th. They extended their recess to May 4th because they believed it was important for them to really follow social distancing guidelines. They wanted to make sure that they were safe. They, as of right now, Nancy Pelosi has said, hey, we can't do remote voting. She came up with a ridiculous excuse on MSNBC saying that we don't know if the House rules or the Constitution will allow for it. I've got committees researching it. So they're able to safely social distance at home. They even came back to vote last week on, the stopgap for more funding for the Paycheck Protection Program. But then when, Nancy Pelosi wanted to keep everybody in the House, they were like, hey, there's a spike of cases in D.C. We're not coming back until May 4th. So my boss is able to sit home if he so wishes and get paid from people's tax dollars while also raking in massive profits from his company. And again, he has taken money out of our pockets in the name of reevaluating if the company is going to be able to be sustainable in the future. It's absolutely nonsense.
While they're taking hazard pay away from you, have they provided you the necessary masks, gloves, sanitation?
So we do have masks provided every day. We have gloves provided every day. We were supposed to be on a program where we were basically doing contact tracing, registering everyone's temperature every time they walked in. But there was a distribution failure, and a lot of the stores didn't get the thermometers for weeks. Like this program, I believe, rolled out 2 weeks ago, maybe even 3. We just got our thermometer this week so we could start checking temperatures.
So I assume...
They decided to prioritize the higher volume stores first and then get them out to the rest of the stores when they could.
Right. So I assume since, he says Total Wine is making record profits and the sustainability of the business and all that and growing the business, I presume they offer you, of course, great stock options, retirement benefits, lavish pension plan. You have all that, right? Because you're risking your life?
No. So what we were offered, though. Now, this was a great thing. I can't say I hate them for it. They took away our $2 hazard pay, and then they offered everybody a $25 wine coupon. so we could get a free bottle of wine up to $25. Mind you, that was only available to the seasonal employees. The full-time employees, the regular employees, didn't get that because they're already a part of the Wine for Life program. So they already get some free wine every month. So they got nothing. And we got a pat on the back, champ. Thanks for risking your life. Come back and do it again tomorrow.
So let me ask you, because I think it's important. I think it's easy for people watching this to be like, well, why don't you guys strike? Because there's this sentiment right now, we need to get everybody to strike. Today, Amazon, let me get the list here. Amazon, Whole Foods, Instacart, Walmart, Target, FedEx, just a few companies striking. But my question to you is, if you guys struck across the country, obviously they would be forced to do something. But it's not so easy, I guess, for you guys to strike, because if you do, who's going to pay, your groceries and for the essentials for you and your family?
Exactly. So to speak on that a little bit, the main thing that's keeping a lot of people that I know in the company from even speaking out to the extent that I'm doing is because we're all terrified, myself included. I knew from the second that I sent that first tweet out about the company cutting the hazard pay that I was going to be a target. I fully expect within the next week or two there will be some miraculous reason that I am terminated. My services will no longer be needed. And a lot of people feel the same way. They just can't speak up at this time because their jobs are so critical. There are people, multi-family homes where, 2/3 of the house isn't working right now. And you've only got one person working this job, bringing in an income, and they just can't say anything because they don't know if they say something, if they take a stand, where their next meal could come from after that. They've got families to think about. A lot of what I'm doing here is, again, I fully expect to be terminated, but I hope that this message gets out to my colleagues, and I hope it starts a conversation where even if I'm gone, I hope it benefits them in the future because they truly do deserve it. They're working extremely hard every day to provide a verifiable, essential service, not only to the people in our local areas, it's, again, keeping the economy afloat. They deserve to be compensated for risking their lives in the tri-state area, D.C., Maryland, and Virginia, where we're continuing to spike.
Mm-hmm. And let me ask you, I don't know what your political beliefs are, but I think we have a race to the bottom right now. You got Trump, who obviously is no friend of workers, who pretends to be, but he's not speaking up about any of this. And obviously, corporations, CEOs like this congressman are basically allowed to take advantage and screw you. Meanwhile, Biden talks decent middle-class language, but he don't give a shit. He's not talking about hazard pay or, all the things we're talking about. So then we get the lesser of two evils argument. Well, Biden's less terrible than Trump. But if Biden were elected, the next pandemic or when the climate inferno comes, I don't really see these things changing because it seems like we live, I have a flag behind me, in the United Corporations of America, where the corporate CEOs are running our government.
And I completely agree with that. Right now, the only two options we have are dangerous rhetoric and progressive lip service. And I mean, to jump back onto David Trone for a second, if you actually look at his personal Twitter, you'll see what I find to be one of the funniest things in the world. He actually labels himself as a progressive Democrat, while he is quite literally a corporate Democrat. He is a wolf in sheep's clothing. But you know what? People fall for the fancy buzzwords and the fact that they don't have a lot of options right now. Again, what do we really have? Joe Biden, Donald Trump. Neither one of them is going to do anything to protect the workers. So, I mean, honestly, I'm not particularly looking forward to this election at all because I don't see anyone out there, at least at the executive level, that's going to look out for workers' rights. Now, in my congressional district, I have some hope. In the 5th district, Steny Hoyer's been my representative since 1981, which is 10 years longer than I've been alive. He's been representing me, but he's got a primary challenger, Michaela Wilkes, great values, strong, real progressive beliefs, and she is actually on his heels. She has a good chance to beat him. That's who I'm looking to for leadership in the future now. The people, the down the ballot candidates who can really help legislate the changes and then put them in front of the executive's desk. Because at that point, the executive leaders will really not have much of a choice but to just go ahead and sign it, or they're going to show for a fact that they're betraying the people who they said they were going into office to support.
And lastly, and maybe this is a dumb question, isn't there a real conflict of interest here that you have a congressman owning a massive wine store? This is not like this is not a small mom and pop. I know Total Wine, most people do, because Congress people are overseeing legislation for possible marijuana legalization, which I assume he might not be for, given that alcohol and marijuana could be competitors. The ATF, the alcohol and tobacco firearms. How is this allowed?
So one of the first things, and mind you, just another little tidbit of backstory on David Trone. He ran for Congress in 2016. He lost horribly. And 2018, where he finally won and got in. Over both of his races, he spent a projected $25 million of his own money to get into Congress. And one of the first things he started attacking was, and I want to make sure I'm saying this right, I believe it was the 21st Amendment. He's trying to break down the last remnants of prohibition so he can bolster his private business. And it's a massive conflict of interest, but no one's talking about it. Everyone likes to focus on the executive branch. They like to say Trump isn't divesting from his businesses. Oh, they made Jimmy Carter sell his peanut farm, but nobody's looking at the actual state and federal legislators who have these massive conflicts of interests, like David Trone, and doing anything about it. There is no good reason a federal legislator should be a major shareholder in a company, should be an owner in a company. It shouldn't be allowed.
Unbelievable. Thank you for coming to us. I hope you will keep us in touch. Unfortunately, I fear you're right, and they probably will terminate you, but we would love to have you back if that happens, because we need to spotlight when companies like Total Wine, Amazon, all of them, retaliate against employees, because that's part of the fear you were talking about. It's not just the fear of not being able to provide food and keep your kids fed. It's the retaliation of being fired for daring to say anything. So workers need to be protected when that happens. So thank you, Rashad. Let's stay in touch.
Absolutely. And if I could say one more thing before I leave, if there's anybody out there who works for Total Wine and you have a story to tell and you're too afraid to actually tell it, reach out to me on Twitter. Shoot me a DM. I'll start telling your stories myself. I have no problem standing up for my people, because guess what? Again, I'm already going to be screwed, but I want to make sure that you all have what you need. Now is the time for us to stand together in solidarity, because we are essential. They need us. The company cannot make any profit without the workers. The consumers cannot get any product without the workers. We have to understand our value and realize that we can leverage that to be paid a living wage and have our risk taken care of for making these people all the money that we're doing, all the money that they're getting, rather.
Totally agree. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you.
Hope you enjoyed that last video. Hop on over to statuscoup.com, where you can sign up for our email list and become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. Membership is how we grow. That's statuscoup.com/join. And remember, join our email list so we can grow the revolution with you.
Status quo.
Well, two things are true. Fuck Total Wine, I'm sticking with whiskey. And number two, that man should be in our government, not working in Total Wine. Not that there's anything wrong with working in Total Wine, but that is the moral fiber we need to represent us, rather than the deviant scoundrels in the Republican Party and Democrat Party. He's essentially doing a career, he's knowingly going to get fired to do the right thing. That takes a lot of courage. Thank you, Suffragim, $10 in the super chat. Solidarity, thank you. And it's just unbelievable. How is this guy a congressman and owning this massive wine store? This guy is one of the congressmen who's saying, no, we can't go back to D.C. because of the COVID increase. So he's sitting on his ass at home while his workers are risking their lives and having their hazard pay taken away. By the way, they didn't even know their hazard pay was taken away. Something sociopathic about these. This is one example. There's other examples. And Trump's not doing a damn thing for these workers. Biden's not advocating for these workers. Verbally, he might be, but he's not proposing anything. Cheryl Tyler, $10. He was amazing and brave. I agree. These are the people that need to not only be elevated, but when that retaliation comes, we need to retaliate against those companies. Nobody should be shopping at Total Wine if this is how they treat their workers. Nobody should be shopping at Total Wine if this is how they exploit their workers. First of all, $2 hazard pay is not enough. And they took that away? Hell no. Thank you, Vicky Blair, $20. 2 more amazing interviews, live stream, and video updates. I'm in awe of the volume of quality work you and Jen pack into a day. Thank you, thank you, thank you. When there's a will, there's a way. We always say we want to give the microphone back to the people. It's a little rocky right now because we can't go out in the field to do what we always do. And I am going to be very careful. Even when they say the coast is clear, I want to get retested, make sure I don't have coronavirus anymore. And it's out of my system. I want to get an antibodies test. I'm no spring chicken. I'm going to be 34 this year. I got a lovely woman to consider. So while we can't go in the field, we're going to try and bring the exploited workers, the screwed workers, the vulnerable, the abused to you. I wish we had a bigger audience. I really do, because I don't see many other outlets doing the interviews we're doing. But we're being screwed by YouTube. I was just talking to Jen before we went live how our subscribers are basically stuck. And part of that is YouTube is, through its algorithm, is intentionally hiding our content. I mean, you saw today. How many of you came to the live stream because you got a text? We sent out the text because we were literally like 3 minutes away from the show actually starting, and we had like 50 viewers because nobody is getting notified. Nobody is seeing the live stream in our feed. Nobody sees it in recommended. So if you're not on our text list, we're probably, unfortunately, it's going to cost us a lot, but we don't have a choice at this point. Make sure you join our text list. That's text 370370 COUP. Write that when you text 370370. Write COUP. That will get you added to our text list. And we might have to start sending out texts more often, just so you know how that works. It costs us quite a lot. Each text. So it all goes to, trying to get the word out. Unfortunately, we live in a time where we have to spend money to notify people when we're live rather than YouTube. So it's a damn shame. JK, I got a text 55 minutes into the stream. You should have got a text right away, so you might be talking about a notification from YouTube. The other thing is I want to answer a super chat before I go from earlier saying, Jordan, if you met your GoFundMe goal, by the way, like we just made our GoFundMe goal $110,000. We really need major funding to do everything Jen and I want. But I would say if we had a lot more money, I'm just going to leave it at that. If we had a big investor that wasn't a scoundrel, that wasn't a Koch brother or, one of these Democratic Party bigwigs, if we had like a progressive investor to give us the money we need, which frankly is, to do it right, we need hundreds of thousands of dollars. If we had the money, I'll tell you right away what we would be doing. We would hire additional reporters. We would hire additional marketing, social media Advertising, we would actually have money for an advertising budget, which would include advertising on other sites, social media advertising, which we can't do right now. If we had the money, we would totally redo our website and develop an app, because I think an app would be very useful, but we don't have the money or the staff to oversee something like that. If we had the money, we would probably try and do more short-form documentaries, because remember, we go out into the field sometimes for 4 or 5 days. We could make out of those trips, short 15 to 20-minute documentaries. That was the original plan, but we just don't have the resources or the bandwidth for that. If we had the money, obviously money would go towards travel too. I would send reporters to cover more indigenous issues. I reached out to representatives from the Navajo Nation today, because Navajo Nation is being ravaged by coronavirus, and there's very little coverage of that. We would send more reporters out to cover the rampant police brutality in this country. We would send more reporters out to cover the rampant fights against pipelines that are continuing to go on, particularly in Donald Trump's America, as he has tripled fracking. If we had the money, we would cover local candidates, not just running for Congress, not just running for Senate, but on the state level. There's great progressives. There's many AOCs out there. There's many, Paula Jean Swearingen, I think is an amazing Senate candidate in West Virginia, running for a second time. I would love to go down there and cover it. We just don't have the money for those kind of trips. We have to pick and choose where we go. We would cover more issues of immigration. We would cover more issues of the climate crisis. We would definitely cover issues of labor and labor unions. We covered General Motors laying off 15,000 workers last year. We were in Michigan and Ohio for that. But there's plenty of other labor stories. Bottom line, we'd hire other reporters, because certainly can't just be Jen and I. And we would have people all over the place. And we would have the advertising to elevate the content, because there's no sense in doing the content if you're not getting it to as many eyeballs as possible. We would also, if we had the money, try and do events, in-person events. I don't think the Young Turks has done everything well. That's a whole nother story, but I do think doing events, they had the Wolf Pack, and they did events around the country to meet with viewers. We would try to do town halls. We would try to do debates, those kinds of things. But all this definitely costs a lot more than the money we have right now. We're now at 1,857. And let me make a point also. All of these wishes we're going to continue wishing for it, because it takes ethics and moral clarity to not take shortcuts. We could get funding if we watered down the content, if we started doing Trump 24/7, if we started ignoring Democratic Party corruption and only focusing on Republicans are bad. Yeah, there's people out there that would fund that. And there's plenty of outlets out there that claim to be progressive that got funding by doing exactly what I just described. By on the edges, kind of being edgy, but mostly doing how awful Trump is and doing very little on Democratic Party corruption, corporate corruption. We're not going to do that. And that's why we're growing slower, because we're growing the right way. And that is through paid membership. Statuscoup.com/join. Become a member for as low as 16 cents a day. That would be $5 a month. That's why at times we push GoFundMe, which, it's pretty damn impressive, I'd say. We're close to, we're near $100,000, $1,725 to go. If there's a heavy hitter in there that wants to, be our angel, get us to the promised land of 100, we would love you. So I hope that answers whoever asked that question with the super chat. And definitely, please sign up for our text list. That is text 370-370 and type in COUP. That's 370-370 Coup. You want to do it. Thank you for watching. I think I'm going to return to my Sunday stomping grounds. I'll be live Sunday at noon Eastern time. Well, noon Eastern-ish. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work doing these Sunday shows. I got to prep it, so it's hard to start on time, and I don't have a producer or anything. But I think we'll be live Sunday. Obviously, we'll come live before then if anything major breaks. And keep spreading the word. Even if you are subscribed to this channel, if you're not subscribed, subscribe and click the bell. Even if you're a member, please spread the word. Word of mouth matters. I know people aren't physically getting together, but if you have friends that might be interested in our content, if you have family that might be interested in our content, even if they are drinking the neoliberal Kool-Aid or drinking the Republican Kool-Aid, tell them to check out Status Coup. Thank you for watching. Peace out.